How we doing, everybody? So we are here to talk about Avengers Endgame. So instead of doing a like a spoiler review, um, me and a friend of mine sat literally for a half hour on the phone, laughing about all the holes that were in Avengers Endgame. And as you know, I was the one guy. In fact, I was at the comic shop, and everyone says, "What do you think of it, Frank?" And I'm like, "I didn't like it." And then everybody's like, "You're the one guy who didn't like it." Yes, so I am the one guy. I know a few other people that didn't like it either, mostly because I think the general consensus was that there was no plot at all. It was just a fan service movie, and that's all it was a fan service movie. In fact, it was even brought up that when I was in the comic shop talking to the guys, that I brought up the all female thing that was just out of the blue, and one of them said, "Yeah, but all the females, clapped and raved," and I'm like, "You're proving my point because it's fan service. It had nothing to do with the film. The film didn't get moved along by any of that. It was purely for fan service." And in this case, it was the female side, the female fans that they were tailoring to. So, so to go along with that and show people, to talk about all of the holes that were in this film, to show that there really wasn't much of a plot, and the plot that it had so many holes that it was just hard to take it seriously for me. Because I saw another review of a guy that said, "Look, you can either pick it apart or you could just enjoy it for what it is." And my brain just doesn't work that way, where I can just let it all go. Because in the back of my head's going, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. And I just can't enjoy the film with my brain saying that. And maybe it's, the writer in me or whatever. In fact, we just did the read-through for the Next Door Destiny Aurora book. And I write the script first before I start writing the prose, only because it's easier to fix story problems. And I wanted to make sure that, I didn't have what these guys have. And these guys are spending millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. You would think that they would be getting together going, yeah, I don't know if that makes much sense. Especially if you're talking, and again, if this is all spoilers. So if you have not seen the film, turn this off now. So we're talking about time travel. They couldn't get away from this any other way besides time travel. And which they could have done in a million different ways besides doing time travel, but that's how they decided to do it. And without even talking about a hole, just, let's talk about the mouse to start with. If it wasn't for the mouse 5 years later accidentally hitting the button in the van that brought the Ant-Man back out from the quantum verse, there would be no movie, right? Because without him coming back, it was just status quo. Nobody was doing anything. All right, so these are my top 12 things outside of the mouse that I had a problem with, and I wasn't the only one that had a problem with this. So here we go. Number 12. Thanos' plan that worked in the past apparently did not work on Earth. So, Thanos, as you know, when Kimura was a child, was doing, he was wiping out half of planet populations, or at least a very large population of planets, long before he ever decided to go get the Infinity Stones. Getting the Infinity Stones was his way of kind of speeding up the process. So instead of going from planet to planet, just executing millions of people in population, he decided it would be a lot more efficient if I just had the stones and could snap my fingers. Makes sense to me. It's like an intergalactic remote. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Ooh, I need new batteries. So he's been doing this for years, since Gamora was a child. So we're talking about, 25 years that he was executing people and seeing the result of the planet as after he executed everybody. He told Gamora straight out in Infinity War, "Hey, your plan's doing great. I'm keeping tabs on that thing." And then, meanwhile, on Earth, he sits there, and this is after Gamora's all grown up, right? Because Gamora's on the planet too, and Gamora's been with him. So this version of Thanos has done this, tens of times, if not 100 times. And he sat there while the Avengers were coming up to him and said, "There's always going to be somebody, so I don't know if this is going to work." Well, he already knows it works. He's been doing it. So he's like, "Well, I don't know if it works because somebody always remembers." Well, you've already been doing it, man. And Gamora remembers it. Gamora knew exactly what she was doing. What happened to her family. Maybe she didn't know right then when she was younger, but she understood later on what happened. Because she even said to him that you killed everybody. So yeah, so they not even following their own rules, because obviously he believes in what he's doing. He thinks it works, or else why do it? And then for him to sit there and prejudge himself or post-judge himself about the fact that this doesn't work doesn't make any sense, because he's been doing it and he knows it does work. All right, so moving on, but that's number 12. Number 11. When Stark snaps his fingers, what happened to Gamora and the other version of Nebula? Did she disappear too? Or did she disappear when the stones were returned? So did she turn to dust? When they returned the stones, was she there that whole time until they returned the stones? Or is she still there? I mean, a lot of people said to me, no, she's back. That's what? So we never even know what happens to Gamora and the other Nebula. So according to the storyline, once the stones are returned, everything returns back to normal, right? That was what the Sorcerer Supreme explained to... Well, actually, that's what Hulk explained to Sorcerer Supreme in New York, was that the timeline was then depleted, which makes no sense either. I'm not even going to go into that, because how could they have gotten the stones for a story from a timeline that didn't exist? So, but anyway, so what happened to these two? Did they go back? Did they immediately disappear? Why did we see any of that? And if that whole timeline is depleted, it's confusing. That part is completely confusing to me. So again, is she back? Are they gone? They did just disappear? But they're not. I don't know. That's more of a question than a hole, but I think it's still a hole, because I have questions. So, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, because other people think that she's back, which I don't think she is. Because she can't come back because she's dead in the other timeline. And they made that very clear with Black Widow, the fact that there is no coming back. Number 10. If Cap marries Peggy, which obviously he did, because he was sitting there and he said, "I lived a whole life with her." Okay. Is she dating? So in Winter Soldier, where he's dating and having sex with Sharon. It's obvious that they had a relationship, even went through Civil War. Since Sharon is Peggy's niece, that would also make it Cap's niece. So he was having sex or some kind of relationship with his niece. See what happens when you play with time, especially when you're talking about 11 and 10, 12 movies here. You're gonna mess things up. And here's one of them. Now he's having a relationship with his niece. So moving on, and also when he visits Peggy in the hospital, and she's dying. I'm not sure what movie that. I think it was Civil War. Also, Winter Soldier. Also, is she confused? Does she say, "How'd you suddenly get younger when I just saw you out in the hallway?" Did he see himself? Again, it just doesn't work. All right, moving on. Number 9. Peter, at the end, Peter Parker returns to high school. Right? He sees Ned, they embrace. Why isn't everybody embracing? Right? Because half the high school would be 5 years older. Right? So most of these kids that are coming back haven't, they thought, I guess they were all dead, because Peter remembers himself turning to dust. So why aren't the other kids, why is it all just a normal day? Doesn't make any sense because they're all returning to school at the same time. And again, the other people are 5 years older because even Ant-Man's kid was 5 years older. What's going on there? So Ned obviously disappeared too, even though we never saw that. But again, what happened there? Is there what happened to the kids that were 5 years older? See, again, something's wrong. They should all be embracing, saying, "Oh my God, I died, I came back." And all the rest of half of the school would be fine because they were there. It's their normal comeuppance in their years. Whatever. Again, whole. Number 8. So Thanos had to travel all the way to the dwarves, right, to make the gauntlet to begin with that would be able to hold and harness the power of the stones, right? So he had to travel halfway across the galaxy to create this gauntlet that would be able to harness the power of the stones, okay? Even though he was a new god, okay? He still needed that. So then when Hulk put on the thing, he's like, "I was made for this." He puts it on. He could barely speak. I mean, he was in so much pain that his arm was getting chewed off, and he still could barely speak. And it took him like 5 minutes to be able to snap his fingers. So, but Stark Tech is apparently stronger than magic. Tony gets all of things on a glove of his armor that was not made magically by elves. Maybe, the Keebler elves, maybe. But, so, he comes back with all of the stones, and then he's barely in any pain. He snapped those fingers. Not only did he snap his fingers, but he made a witty remark. "I am Iron Man." He didn't have any problem getting that out. Hulk could barely get anything. He could barely breathe. But no, Tony Stark, with Stark Tech, he can handle the power of everything. Again, it's just not, see, it doesn't jive. All right, moving on. Number 7. So, Doctor Strange, yes, he knew what was happening in the future. But everybody else didn't. Everybody else did not know what was going on. So, we got everybody back, right? They didn't know everybody was back yet. They didn't know the snap worked yet. But they got everybody back, and so everybody's in, whatever area they're in, and they all come back, right? So, Wakanda, and, they got to be disoriented to some degree anyway, coming back from, dust, So they're all back. They remember that they went to dust. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange now has to travel between Wakanda, New York, and Asgard, New Asgard, and say, "Hey, look, they're in a big friggin' battle. Come and help. And we need you to bring everybody." In fact, he even tells his friend that, "Oh, is this everybody?" So obviously his friend was helping him, but still, they had to not only travel and talk to everybody and tell them what was going on, and then talk them into coming, but they had to tell thousands and thousands of troops to get in their armor, go home, don't kiss your wife hello or anything like that. Come get in your armor and come help us fight. And that all took 10 minutes. From the time they came back to the time that they were battling Thanos, couldn't be more, maybe I'm exaggerating, but couldn't be more than 20 minutes. So meanwhile, all these thousands of troops got ready after just coming back and are ready to fight. Not only that, but he had to talk them into telling what's going on. "I know you got these people just came back, but we got to go fight." And that took them all of 20 minutes, plus getting them all in their armor. Oof. Plus, plus Mrs. Stark was there, Pepper Potts. So he had to go all the way to talk to her too. Ugh, what a mess. Okay. Number 6. 1 vial of Pym Particles was enough to break through an entire ship carrying thousands of people. This thing was bigger than a Star Destroyer. And it came through the machine. And only he had a Pym Particle bottle like this that he took. What? Did he even have the hookup to be able to power the thing? I don't even know. But he figured it out real quick because he followed them immediately with the entire ship carrying all of his men. Thousands of people. Rolling my eyes. Anyway, no. See, you can only push the envelope so far before it breaks. Number 5. What was the reason for the machine to begin with? So they have the machine, right? And even in the thing that the van has one, right? Because Ant-Man says, I have another time machine. Why do they need the machines at all? And everybody's like, well, you need to come back and you need to leave. And, they were all gathered there. Yeah. But when you went to the future, you didn't have a machine powering yourself to come back. But they had to power this thing somehow to come back. And then on top of that, they didn't have another machine when they went further back. When Cap and Tony went back further to get more, after they got the Pym particles or whatever else. What do they need the machines for? I didn't understand any of that. I mean, not only that, but Thanos didn't have a machine on his side to even get them the ship to come through. So they didn't need the machine to begin with. So if they didn't need the machine to begin with, why didn't Hulk, as soon as he snapped his fingers, why didn't he immediately pop into the future and put all the stones back? There was no need for the final battle then. He would just poof back and it would have been over. The timeline would have been gone. Everybody was back. Thanos didn't know anything. So just didn't make any sense. It's breaking my brain. Why didn't the Hulk just snap his fingers as soon as he was done, and go back? Doesn't make any sense. Number 3. How did Cap explain fighting himself at America's ass? Did he try to investigate? So again, this goes back into Civil War and Winter Soldier and all that stuff. And I'm going to push this one more time because I don't think I talked about this. Yeah, I did talk about it next one. Okay, so if he's fighting himself, knowing Cap, wouldn't he try to find out why? And now that changes the timeline. Right? Because again, even if they went back in time, right? So anything forward from the stones being taken would not exist. However, he hadn't taken the stones out yet. So they hadn't returned yet. So he still would have fought himself. And Cap would remember that. So it didn't make any sense either. So if they return them as soon as they leave the timeline to come back, still all the stuff prior to them leaving is still in the timeline. So he would have fought himself. And now in the future movies, that would have come up as a situation. Well, I have to fight myself, and I don't know why. But I think we should find out. All right, number 2. If Hydra thinks Cap is one of them, why didn't they confront him with this in Winter Soldier? So again, we're coming back into all the stuff that happened prior to him leaving with the stones. And it messes up Winter Soldier very, very badly. Because now if all of them realize that he knows about them being Hydra, why didn't they say, well, hail Hydra, you joining us or what? And if he already knows and they know he knows, then the whole ending of Winter Soldier is then a problem. So, yeah. And again, they haven't returned. They haven't left with the stones, which means when they return the stones, that's still a problem. Anyway, they really had to keep themselves on the down low, which they did not do. So they've altered stuff. All right, and number 1, Cap returns with the stones. Okay, so Cap goes back by himself with no time machine, 1 vial of Pym Particles, but returning the 3 to New York, okay, we can get away with that. Get away returning with the 3 to New York. What about the others? One of them had to go back across the galaxy to where Quill was. So, how is he going to get there? He had to, what, take a spaceship up to, I forgot the name of the planet, but wherever Quill was stole the orb from. How is he going to get there? All right, doesn't make any sense. Second, is he going to go see the Red Skull? How's he going to return the Soul Stone? Okay, I don't know what the... Here you go, just drop it back down the hole. I don't know. Because he has to, or else Thanos and Kimura can't go there and keep the timeline going. Then the other thing, even the one in New York that he had to give back to Hydra, but again, he was giving it back to Hydra, just FYI. He knows he's giving it back to Hydra. Was in the cube, right? It was in the cube. Because the cube slid across the floor. But yet, the stone itself had to be loose to go in the gauntlet. So how's he going to return it? Say, oh, by the way, here, I'm sorry, I broke it. Yeah. Anyway, those are my top 12 things that that don't work in Avengers. And you can see why I didn't like it, because all of these questions, and I'm sure there's more. This is just off the top of my head. That just don't work. And we're constantly in the back of my mind saying, how can I like this movie when my brain is getting bent? So, anyway, for you guys who did enjoy it, I'm glad you did. Now, if you look back, you're going to have a whole lot of questions if you ever watch it again, if you watch this video. You say, yeah, Frank was right, or Frank was wrong. Maybe you can say, no, you're wrong because of this. And I really like to hear that, that there was some kind of answer to some of these questions that, as a writer, I can't figure it out. I don't know why they did a whole time machine thing. It was kind of like Star Trek Discovery about why they went, why they used they created the timeline back in time to move this thing forward when all they had to do was go forward, which now they're doing. Time travel stories have to be so thought out that all the pieces have to work, and if they don't, then you just have a mess, and that's really what this film was. For me, it was a mess. And it was too bad because Infinity War was so tight, and Endgame just wasn't. But the writing on, and that's why I'm really disappointed too, because it was, I don't know if it was the same writers, because the writing on that was so tight. So disappointed. All right, have a good one, and let me know your thoughts, and share, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.